Welcome back, everyone, to FLASHBAck PODCADE, the show where we take a trip down memory lane. I'm your host, Kolm.
And I'm your co-host, Koletta. Today we have a really fun topic. We're going to talk about something we both love.
Yes, cartoons. Specifically, the cartoons we grew up with in the 80s.
That's right. The golden age of Saturday morning cartoons. It was a ritual. Waking up early, grabbing a bowl of cereal.
Ugh, definitely. So, when you think of cartoons from that time, what's the first one that comes to mind? For me, it has to be Tom and Jerry.
Oh, absolutely. Tom and Jerry, a true classic. You just can't beat it.
It was just so simple, wasn't it? A cat chasing a mouse. That's it. No big, complicated story.
Right. You didn't even need to understand English to enjoy it because they rarely spoke. The comedy was all visual.
Exactly. The slapstick humor, the crazy ways Tom would try to catch Jerry and always fail. It's timeless.
It really is. My parents loved it, I loved it, and even kids today can watch it and laugh. That's pretty special.
And speaking of cartoons with no dialogue, what about the Pink Panther?
Oh, I loved the Pink Panther. So cool, so smooth, and that music.
The music is iconic. You hear it and you immediately know what it is.
Totally. He never spoke a word, but he had so much personality, just through his movements and the silly situations he got into.
I think that's something a lot of those older cartoons did really well. They told a story without needing a lot of dialogue. The animation did all the work.
Yeah, the animation itself. It was all hand-drawn back then. You can really feel the artist's touch in every frame. It had a certain warmth to it, you know?
That's a good way to put it. A warmth. It wasn't perfect or super smooth like today's animation, but it was full of life.
Okay, so we had the simple, funny cartoons, but then there were the action cartoons, the ones with big stories and heroes.
Right, like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe.
Yes, and She-Ra, Princess of Power. I wanted to be She-Ra so badly, for the honor of Grayskull.
I had the He-Man action figure with the sword and everything. I'd stand in the living room and yell, "I have the power." My friends and I would play for hours in the backyard, pretending to be them.
That was the best part. The cartoons were fun, but playing with the toys and using your imagination was a huge part of the experience.
It really was, and the stories were always so clear. You knew who the good guys were and who the bad guys were. He-Man versus Skeletor. Simple.
So simple. Good versus evil. And they always had a little lesson at the end of the episode. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember that. They would come out and talk directly to the camera, telling you something like, "Don't talk to strangers," or "It's important to be a good friend."
Speaking of epic battles and unforgettable heroes, we can't forget about Thundercats, can we? That opening sequence was pure adrenaline. The music, the logo, Lion-O grabbing the Sword of Omens and shouting, "Thunder! Thunder! 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 Thundercats! Ho!" It gave me chills every single time. It was this perfect blend of science fiction and fantasy that just captured your imagination. You had these humanoid cats fighting an ancient mummy on a new planet. It was epic.
Absolutely epic. And staying on the action-packed theme, we have to talk about the robots in disguise, the Transformers. The concept alone was mind-blowing for a kid. Cars, trucks, and planes that turned into giant talking robots.
And the toys, the Transformers toys were on a whole other level. The complexity and detail were amazing. It felt like you were holding a piece of the show in your hands. My brother had Optimus Prime, and I was so jealous.
And speaking of massive toy lines, we can't ignore G.I. Joe. That show was a cultural phenomenon. It wasn't just about selling toys. It created this incredibly detailed world. You had the Joes, a diverse team of specialists, versus the global terrorist organization Cobra. The characters were so well defined. Everyone had their favorite Joe. Were you a Duke fan? Or maybe more of a Snake Eyes?
I was always a Scarlet fan. And you're so right, the world building was incredible. It felt so real. But if we're going to talk about massive franchises, we have to mention the heroes in a half shell, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Kawabunga! Absolutely. The turtles were a phenomenon. It was this bizarre, brilliant concept. Four turtles, mutated by ooze, trained in ninjutsu by a giant rat. It sounds ridiculous, but it worked so well. The blend of action, comedy, and that awesome theme song was just perfect.
You know, we're talking about all these great 80s cartoons, but we were also watching a ton of reruns from even earlier decades.
That's so true. It wasn't just about what was new. We had this incredible backlog of classics. I mean, how many hours did we spend watching Looney Tunes?
Oh, countless. Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Wile E. Coyote, they were timeless. The humor was so sharp, and the animation had this beautiful, fluid quality. They felt just as fresh as anything else we were watching.
And how about the Flintstones and the Jetsons were constantly on? One was in the Stone Age, the other in the future, but they were basically the same hilarious family sitcom.
Exactly. It just shows that a good story and funny characters don't have an expiration date. It's the reason we still love them today.
So we've covered the big guns, the Transformers, the Thundercats, but what about some of the ones that might have slipped through the cracks, the forgotten gems?
Of this topic. My first thought is Gem and the Holograms. It was truly outrageous. It had everything: music, fashion, rival bands, and a secret identity. The songs were actual 80s pop songs, and the fashion was just peak 80s glamour.
Gem was definitely a unique one. On the action side of things, I was a huge fan of MASK, Mobile Armored Strike Command. It was like a mix of G.I. Joe and Transformers. They had these ordinary-looking vehicles that transformed into combat machines. My favorite was Matt Tracker's car, Thunderhawk, that turned into a gull-wing fighter jet. So cool.
Yes, the transforming vehicles were the best part. Every kid wanted those toys. And the masks gave them special powers, right?
Exactly. And speaking of unique sci-fi concepts, do you remember Silverhawks? Partly metal, partly real. So how do you think all those cartoons compare to the cartoons kids watch today?
Oh, it's a completely different world.
Right? The pacing, for one. Everything today seems so much faster. The scenes change quickly. There's a lot more happening on screen at once.
Definitely. And the stories are much more complex. Today's cartoons often have long story arcs that continue over many episodes or even whole seasons.
Yeah, you can't just jump into the middle of a season and know what's going on. In the 80s, almost every episode was a standalone story. You could watch any episode in any order and be fine.
That's true. It was easier to follow. What about the animation style?
Well, today it's mostly computer generated, CGI, and it can be amazing, so detailed and fluid. The colors are so bright and vibrant.
I agree. Some of the animation today is beautiful. It's like watching a movie. But I don't know, I still miss the hand-drawn look. It had a charm that's hard to replicate.
It's that warmth we were talking about before. The little imperfections made it feel more human.
Exactly. And the humor is different too. A lot of modern cartoons have jokes that are clearly meant for the parents who are watching with their kids.
Right, there's different layers to it, which is clever and I enjoy it as an adult. But our cartoons were just for us, the kids. The humor was simple and direct.
So, do you think they're better now, or were they better back then?
That's the big question, isn't it? I don't think one is necessarily better. They're just products of their time. They reflect the culture they were made in.
That's a really good point. Today's world is faster and more complex, and so are the cartoons. Our world felt a little simpler, and our cartoons reflected that.
But I'll always have a special place in my heart for those 80s shows. The simplicity, the clear stories, the memorable characters. It's pure nostalgia.
Me too. Watching them again feels like getting a warm hug. It brings back all those happy memories of being a kid, sitting on the floor in front of the TV on a Saturday morning with no worries.
There's nothing better than that feeling. Well, that's all the time we have for today on Flashback Podcade.
Thanks so much for listening and taking this trip with us. What were your favorite childhood cartoons? Feel free to discuss your favorites down below in the comments.
Until next time, keep those memories alive.